Hey folks, John with Complete Technology Solutions, your friend in the computer business. All right guys, so today I'm going to be introducing something a little bit new for you guys, and I'm kind of curious to see what kind of response we get. Let's just jump right in. So guys, if you'll recall, I actually put a poll up about possibly starting a members channel. And on that members channel, I would do the day-to-day modifications that I do on some of these weapons that you guys don't actually get to see. And one of the most requested things I get are super close-ups whenever I do any kind of the upgrades on these things. So I thought, well, this might be a fantastic opportunity to go ahead and share that with you guys on a revolver that is actually going out to a client. So what we're going to do is we're going to upgrade this by pulling out the valve block and installing the power kit in it, and then reassembling the entire thing right here up close so you can see it. So you may not see my smiling face a lot, but you're going to see down here on the stage really closely. So you all have seen me do this upgrade before. This is the HDR68 that we're going to be working on. If you forgot about that one or you haven't seen the video, I'll toss a couple links up here for you. It's a fantastic launcher. It really is. These guys, you all know how I feel about Umarex products, and the T4E line are just absolutely fantastic, and you can really get some juice out of them. You really can. And I've had an amazing success rate with these things. I have never had a failure on them. So we're going to go ahead and get this one upgraded for him. In order to do this, you're obviously going to need the power kit. I'll show you there. By the way, guys, I do carry these. If anybody needs them, shoot me an email. Little hammer, that comes in handy when you're knocking out the valve block. A screwdriver, a larger flat tip screwdriver, works really well. You need a snap ring pliers. Now, these are regular old basic snap ring pliers. It's to unscrew that valve block. But guys, at the end of the day, I've seen people use a couple of screws together with a rubber band to open it. So whatever works for you, this is the professional and easy way to do it. And then, of course, this is something that people ask about quite a bit. Now, when you put the valve kit in here, the CO2 restrictor in particular, it fits in snug. And it's going into a plastic seal in there, and that's how it stays. I like to put a little bit of silicone around it. This is waterproof sealant. Just a little bit around the edges of it to seal it into place. And there's a couple of reasons for that. Number one, your primary charging method is BAM, which means you've got a lot of downward pressure on that. Also, if you should drop the weapon, it could theoretically pop out. This just keeps that from ever happening, and it's still removable if you need to in the future. So this is just a little tip. That's what I do. All right, here's what we're going to do. I'm going to reposition the camera to get a dead-on view of that bad girl. And then we are going to start the upgrade and modifications. Here we go. Okay, folks, as you can see, we've got a reposition here in front of the camera. When we get into the inner workings of this, I will actually lift it to the camera to give you guys a good view of what's going on. There are only a couple areas where you want to be really careful, and we'll go into that as we get there. So the first thing we want to do is go ahead and remove the drum and then lower this spring back into place. Okay, you want this down into place down here. That makes it a whole lot easier when you're pulling it apart to remove that spring that's holding that without this whole thing snapping apart on you. All right. You do not have to remove this yet, so you can actually leave that on without a problem. All right, you're going to lay the weapon on its left side. That's going to expose the screw holes that we need to unscrew. All right. And I've got my little iFixit screwdriver here, and we're just going to go screw to screw. And guys, I know this video might run a little long because I'm going to let you actually see every step that I take with every modification, and that's all of them, guys. We're talking about the HDP 50, obviously the HDR68 because it's here, but the TR50, which is another largely requested one, the HDB shotgun, the HDX shotgun, the HDS shotgun, and any other modifications that we do. So those will all be on the member channel. Hopefully I will have some information for you guys on that shortly about when the channel is going to start. I'm thinking in the next few days I'm going to try to get I've started the process, but it's all kind of new to me. So, all right, we're going to remove all these screws. And guys, I want to do this live with you because if you've got your own weapon and you want to follow along, You can follow along with exactly what I'm doing. I will tell you that if you're doing this for the first time, your best friend is your camera. You want to take a picture of things as you disassemble them. Now, you guys will notice that I am leaving the screws in the weapon as I unscrew these. You see that? Okay. Screw in the last one here. And then the last one you have to remove is the Picatinny rail at the top here. Okay? So we're going to turn that sideways. You guys can see, by the way, those are little, looks like Allen keys. You see, they're actually star wrenches. Okay? So what we're going to do is we're going to remove those two. And hold on one second here. Got to find the right screw. There we go. By the way, guys, this is my little iFixit kit. This is the one that I use for all of these kind of conversions. So, all right. And on this one, I believe it is a little bigger than that one and a little smaller than that one. Boy, isn't that Murphy's Law. There we go. Looks like it is a T8H. If you can make that out, I hope you can. That's the size you're going to use to remove the Picatinny rail at the top. Okay, there we go. And now these screws you will have to go ahead and take completely out because they're going to be they're going to have to be replaced in there anyway, and they're the same size, so you don't have to worry about that. There we go. Rail is off the top. Now, once you've removed the rail, as you can see, it exposes the two halves of the weapon. All right. So at this point, we're going to remove the halves of the weapon, separate them, just like that, all the way up. And you can use, I've actually, and I'll show you guys this too, anything flat, like I've seen people use like memory cards or credit cards. You can run this just down the seam. It's not a big deal, but it helps to kind of separate the two halves. And when it gets to a certain point, like you just heard that click, when it gets to that point, the whole thing will just come off. Okay? Set that aside. This is your mechanism. Now, this is that spring I was talking about that can come popping out on you. You can see how that's under pressure right there, okay? So just back the spring off and pull it out, and out comes that spring. Set the spring aside. Now, on the barrel here, this spring is also under pressure, okay? So we're going to lift this whole mechanism out, all right? So what I usually do is hold on the top there. You see how that just comes right out like that, all right? And you can remove the barrel and set it aside. And you can remove, that is actually the feed, the guide that holds the drum in place, okay? And set it aside. And we can go ahead and move the bottom of the weapon out. All right, so in order to separate these two halves to get to the valve block, which is right here. Now, a lot of people, guys, you're gonna hear that people will literally unscrew that and screw in a screw into that aluminum valve block. I do not like doing that because you can get shavings in this mechanism, and that's all you want is metal shavings floating around. So, all right, so we're going to go ahead and remove these screws. Hang on here. Always helps to actually use a screwdriver there. There we go. One there. One here. Yeah, I wanted to make this nice and clear for you guys, so hopefully everybody is seeing the screws I'm removing. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. That's the screws we're removing. By the way, you'll also notice I am not pulling them out. All I am doing is raising them up and to their top point. So I leave them in place. Makes life a lot easier. There we go. 3 more. 1. There we go. 2, and 1 more after this one. All right. Now, the next part. Guys, this is the part that I tell people is tricky, and you want to be super, super careful. All right. All of these screws are now loose, all right, which means that these two halves can be separated. But the trick to doing it is you want to go super, super slow. Right here, there's a metal pin that is wedged between the two sides. That is the only thing that's holding this whole thing together. So what I do is I take my flat tip screwdriver and going around the sides of the weapon, just pry up very slightly, very slowly, all the way around, and you'll feel it give. See that, how it gave? Once it gives like that, you got to be super careful right here. This mechanism has a tendency to ride up on you. See this? See the trigger mechanism here? And I'll show you again just so you guys can see it. When the trigger is pulled, see how that whole thing goes down? That mechanism tends to ride up. So you want to be real careful when you pull this apart. Slowly lift the two halves apart. And holding that mechanism in place because it's going to try to ride on you. There we go. And see, this is what I'm talking about. See how this is, I want to try to get a close-up on it, guys. See how this mechanism right here is trying to ride up on top of this. See that? There you go. That's how it sits. But that's what I was saying. You got to be real careful not to let that ride, because every time you pull that trigger, that's exactly what's going to happen. It's going to try to pull this up. See how that it raises the whole thing up? And it can try to come out on you. So be real careful. All right, so what I want to do, guys, is I'm going to give you, if you take this apart and you have a catastrophe and springs fly around, it's not the end of the world. So what I want to do is I'm going to give you a nice close-up view of what this looks like and the springs that you want to watch out for. You've got a small one here. You've got one here. You've got one under the trigger, which keeps it forced backwards. You've got a small one there. And you've got a small one here. So in all, you've got 5 little springs in there you want to keep very, very close tabs on. But if you do it correctly, none of that should come flying out. Now, one thing I want to point out, when you're removing this top, this pin is fixed. This pin floats. So you want to be careful when you pull that top off that this pin doesn't come out. Otherwise, you will lose this mechanism. You'll have to put it back together again. But as you can see, it's a very simple mechanism to reassemble. And you've got video now, which you can actually, once again, pause and get a good view of exactly what it's supposed to look like. So now, next stage, to remove the valve. Now, guys, this is critical. If you want to keep all this into place, you have got to keep a couple of what I figured out is kind of the mesh position. So you mesh down your thumbs down here, you push in, and you pull up at the same time. And I want to get in a position so I can do this, guys. Everybody see how I'm holding my hands? Mesh together, push in, and pull up at the same time. This is a very highly compressed spring, guys. And if you do it wrong, things will go flying. So in and up gently. There we go. And I'm holding it right now, guys. I'm actually holding it really tightly, because the spring has come out. There's the spring. And once we're at that point, you can lay it down and just lift it out. As you can see, nothing moved. So that's the key. Go nice and slow. Okay? So next stage, we're going to go ahead and we're going to remove the rubber grommet and the bolt and the spring and set it to the side. All right? So this is the actual valve block that we're working with right now. All right? We're going to go ahead and take our snap ring pliers, and in the back here of the valve block, you see you've got 2 holes. Place your snap ring pliers in the holes and unscrew the valve, just like that. Guys, I'm trying to keep every bit of this on camera for you, so hopefully it's not too congested and this video doesn't run too long, but hey, what the heck. That way you guys get to spend some time with me. All right, and what we're removing is that block right there. Now, what's really cool about it is in the power kit, you get this screw, which you're actually going to use to put the CO2 restrictor in a minute. But it also happens to fit perfectly right down there, and you can knock out that valve assembly. You got a little bit sideways, so you've got it, and tap it with your hammer. And you see how I'm holding it there, guys? So I've got this in there sideways, so I'm hitting it, and tap it with your hammer. There you go. And you don't have to hit hard, guys. And out comes the valve block. And this is part of why you're getting lower power out of these. Now, the next thing you want to do, if you look up in there, you're going to see a little bitty O-ring. You see that? We don't want to leave that O-ring in there, guys, because we don't want it in the mechanism. So normally what I'll do is get a screwdriver, knife, whatever you've got, to remove that O-ring. And I'm going to go ahead and we will use our regular knife here. And we're going to pull that O-ring out. There we go. And you can pull it out without damaging it. That way, if you ever decide to go back, you can always put it back in again. But you're not going to. Trust me, once you do this mod, you're never going back. That's for sure. Okay, so once that's out of there, the valve block is removed. We're going to go ahead and put our cap back on. There we go. And the hard part is over, guys. We're into the easy part now, give or take. All right, screwing that down. And you do not have to really gorilla this tight, guys, but you do want it very, very, very snug because that's a lot of pressure you're putting in there, okay? Now, we're going to go ahead and put our O-ring back on. This is our rubber grommet, excuse me. And we're going to slide it back on our bolt and our little mechanism. Now, this piece right here, this is what the barrel fits into, and this little aluminum piece sits right there. You cannot put that in the wrong way. If you try, it will not fit. See? So it can only go in one direction, and you set it in place right there. Now make sure you do not forget to do this, or you will be disassembling your weapon. All right. So just like last time, we're going to compress the spring, and we're going to go straight down onto this. So there it is. Compress the spring, straight down on. And you see what we did there, how it lined up, and everything went in. All right. So let's make sure that everything is tight and secure in place. There you go. Just like that. All right, I'm going to give you a view of this, guys. So what I was aligning is this screw, or this pin and this pin, come through the top of that valve block. So once you compress it, you can set it into place, and you can see where the trigger mechanism actually pulls and snaps that bolt right there. So you want to make sure that you've got your trigger sitting in that little groove right there, and you're perfect. All right, at this point, we're going to go ahead and start reassembly on this weapon. Once again, and I'm going to say this again because somebody's going to forget, don't forget the little aluminum piece right there, all right? Now, to reassemble, you just want to slide this down very gently, guys. It will go right into place when you're there. Once it hits that bolt, slide it down and lock it into place. Now, let's go ahead and get a couple of screws tightened up on here. And that's the hard part, guys. Really, the hardest part of this entire thing is removing that bolt assembly without popping springs everywhere. That's the toughest part about this mod. But like I said, if you do, you now have some nice close-up shots of exactly what the mechanism looks like, and you'll be able to recover from that. So don't panic. All right, securing these down. There is no order. You have to tighten these in, guys. It's not like you're, crossing over or anything like that. So whatever order you want to. There we go. And one more right here. All right. And there was one more. There it is right there. It came out and was sitting there waiting for us. There we go. All right. At this point, what we're going to do, there we go. We're going to take the left-hand side of the weapon. We're going to set it down. Let's get our little O-ring and our old valve out of the way here. Now, normally, guys, whenever I sell these, if you buy one of these from me, you're going to get it with the old O-ring and the pin included in the kit. Now, this one already had a shortened valve pin. We did a firing pin. The shortened pin, by the way, looks like this right here. All right. That pin is right inside of that bolt. So you can actually unscrew the bolt, and the that pin is actually screwed in there with a flat tip screwdriver. Now, whenever I do this particular mod on this, that's the first thing I always change on these. Every weapon that comes in gets a shorter firing pin because that right off the bat boosts your power. So this is the original pin that was in it. There you go. And the new one is already installed. If you are trying to get that bolt or that pin out, and on the last video I showed you how to do that, if it's too tight, guys, this is some really soft metal. So you want to make sure that you heat up the bottom of that bolt, and you can use a heat gun. That works really well, or you can actually set it close to a stove, whatever, just kind of heat it up, and then it'll break that Loctite garbage that's on there, and you'll be able to unscrew it real easily. Then just insert your new pin. Very simple. So, all right. And I'm sorry I didn't show you guys that. It occurred to me I'd already done it on this, but yeah. On future videos, we'll have that in there also because I only do that on the 68s when they first come in. So, all right. Let's go ahead, and we are going to put in our barrel right there. We're going to slide in our little guide. Now, guys, this has got a short square end and a long rounded end. So what you want to do is the round end wants to go down because you have to go through this little slot right here. All right. We're going to set it into place. Everything in place. There we go. And on the barrel, you're going to have to pull back this spring like that and seat it down into place. Just like that. Now, the next thing we're going to do is take this long spring that actually holds this in place, slide it over the top there and down into place. And you can see that's under a lot of tension there, guys. And that way you don't have to worry about it popping out on you. I mean, if it did, this wouldn't be something that went across the room, but yeah, it can get a little annoying. All right. So at this point, what I like to do here is, while it's all assembled, is just test your trigger mechanism. All right. And what you're looking for is you want to make sure this is pulling up correctly. The trigger is recoiling like it should, and that you are getting the guide is actually pushing up in there. Hopefully you guys are seeing that too. That will advance the drum to the next round. Give you a view from this side. There you go. All right, so let's go ahead and we're going to get our other side of the weapon put on. There we go. And screw this down. Yeah, this the firing pin, guys, it's probably what I would consider the smallest of the increases in power that you're going to get out of this whole mod. Obviously, the largest increase in power is removing the valve block. That's where you get a majority of your extra punch from, if you will. And yeah, if I was wondering, I am sort of staggering these particular ones. It is not necessary, but if you want to, you can. Not a problem. All right. Screw that one down. I'll tell you, when you do this on the HDP 50, I have noticed, and even on the TR50, I have noticed that there are a couple of Phillips heads that are a little bit different than all of the rest of them. So you want to make sure you don't strip these guys. So get a good grip on it. Tighten until it's snug. Don't over tighten. Don't go crazy with it. Don't gorilla it, or you will jack up your gun. You don't want to do that. All right. Get that one down. Yeah, like you could see, I am stair-stepping a little bit, but not a whole lot. There we go. And last couple to go here. Yeah, this the valve block, the CO2 restrictor, excuse me, is the last thing that we're going to replace. And it will be replaced in just 1 second. I'll show you how to do it. There we go. And this one, and we should have 2 more unless my count was all messed up here. Got that one. That one's down. And this one. 3 more. Yeah, 3 more. Okay. There we go. And 1 more here in the front. And that one should be the last one we got there. All right, so we'll get the last one secured down here. There we go. And last one. All right, our last phase for this is to put our Picatinny rail back on. And as you can see, it fits right on there like that. And then we will re-secure those using this star wrench, or star screw, or star tip, or star. There we go. And securing that down. Okay. Once we've got that all secure, we're going to go ahead and we're going to do our valve block. By the way, guys, if you put these in and you can't quite find the threads, a good trick to these is reversing. Go backwards on the screw till you hear it click, and then go forward slowly. All right, once we're here, let's just make sure everything is still working. Yep, we're getting good advancing here. We're getting good return on the trigger. Everything's looking good. All right, now for the valve block. We're going to unscrew the CO2 chamber down here. And as you guys can see, if you look up in there, it's basically just a hole. Let me see if I can get some light down there and show you. And see if you can actually see what's down in there here, guys. It's basically, you got a hole. Hopefully, there you go. You can see that where you've got those 3 little protrusions. Now, the block itself will fit in there snugly. But what I like to do is take your valve block, take your screw that comes with the kit, screw it into the back here. Now, what I like to do is take a little bit of this the silicone sealant and put it right around the edge. Guys, you do not need a lot. You just need a little bit of that sealant around the edge. Now, what that'll do is that will ensure that this thing, number one, doesn't come out and it doesn't leak. So, all right, so we're going to take this and insert it straight down the tube and into place. You hear that click into place? And once you get it there, I usually give it a little tap, not that you need it, and then unscrew the screw. There we go. Just like that. And as you guys can see, it's nice and installed down in there. And at this point, you are ready to go and you're ready to fire. So you don't have to wait for that sealant to dry, although it does dry very quickly, so you don't have to worry about that. Slide that forward, in with our drum, bam, ready to rock. So it's a very simple upgrade, a very simple mod. I hope you guys enjoyed this. We're going to be doing a lot more of these videos in the future with some nice close-up shots. Let me know in the description if you get a kick out of these, if you want to see more, if you want to see different weapons that are upgraded, whatever you want, let me know. Have a great week, guys. Bye-bye.